So it's really, how do I elevate my thinking and then communicate with my peers in that way, and really elevating their thinking as well.
Hello and welcome to the HR Like a Boss podcast. I'm your host, John Bernatovich. I have embarked on a journey to get to know amazingly awesome HR and business professionals with the hope to find out what it takes to do HR like a boss. If you enjoy the show, please make sure that you subscribe and hit that 5-star rating. Hello again and welcome to the HR Like a Boss podcast. We are continuing our Ohio HR Conference series on the HR Like a Boss podcast, and we have another great keynote speaker that's going to be sharing all kinds of wisdom about what it's like to think like an executive and how to advance your culture inside of your organization. Pamela Green, welcome to the HR Like a Boss podcast.
Hello, John. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So Pamela, you in your presentation that you're going to be doing at the Ohio HR Conference, you have this idea of thinking like an executive. And I know there's this cliche out there about seat at the table and all these things that HR and business leaders, human business leaders are looking for HR to be more business leaders in that sense. So tell me what people should expect when they come to your keynote presentation at the Ohio HR Conference, and what they can get from it, and what those takeaways will be.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple of things. I'm going to do a keynote, then I'm going to do a deeper dive. I'm going to talk about, do you know what your culture is? Because we talk a lot about culture and we're trying to build culture, but we can't even name what the culture is and what we want the culture to be. So we'll talk about that. But then we'll also talk about how to think like an executive, or think like an executive brand. And when you were talking, John, about, HR discharging, kind of riffing off of what I had said about HR discharging, helping people understand what their HR responsibility is, I think it's really understanding what my role is to support the organization from that strategic leadership perspective. So we'll be talking about the specific HR role on thinking like an executive, meaning you got to understand the other ways of thinking in order to know where you should show up. So some HR leaders will show up thinking about their team's performance, their level in the organization, when really they need to be thinking about and attached to the organization's performance. So it's not just about me and HR and I'm doing HR speak. It's really understanding the organization's needs and speaking from almost like the seat of the CEO without having the seat of the CEO, so that they recognize that you understand what the business is about. So it's really, how do I elevate my thinking and then communicate with my peers in that way, and really elevating their thinking as well at the same time.
I'm curious, Pam, I'll ask a follow-up question. As you talked about your perspective changing on the purpose of HR, do you think this idea of thinking like an executive, has that evolved for you as you've had differing roles of working in HR, working for SHRM, and now doing executive coaching, or has it always been the same of how you've looked at that as thinking as an executive?
Oh, no. I mean, I had some hard lessons to learn. I remembered in one organization, I said something that I will never, ever forget. And I say this to a lot of my clients who are her chief HR officers, is they will say things like, well, I said this, I said, I'm going to put on my HR hat. And one of my colleagues jumped on that like something crazy. And he said to me, well, while you put on your HR hat, I'm going to put on my business hat. And I was like, oh man, he got me on that one. And he was right. I was thinking one dimensional when I should have been thinking more broadly. Now, he didn't come up with anything any better, but he got me on that one. And it really expanded immediately where I was thinking from a one dimension when the business had multiple dimensions, multiple facets. And so getting to know the different contributions that they were making and how HR could help, it was a game changer for me. And that's where it began to evolve. And then I started looking at the business from there, from the top down. Like, okay, so what are your challenges? What are the things that you're facing? How can I address that through some sort of a human resource or business solution? So it forever changed my thinking, and it just continues to evolve from there.
So as you can tell, Pamela's awesome. And she is going to be at the Ohio HR Conference, September 20th through the 22nd. So you better be there too. If you're not already signed up, you can Google Ohio HR Conference, or you can Google Ohio SHRM Both of those will take you to the way to register. Jason Lawson, the chair, was specific with me to make sure that I got as many people to come to the conference as possible because of a few things. There's going to be great speakers throughout the entire 3 days, including Pamela. And I cannot tell you how fortunate I've been to meet a few of them along the way. And I'm super excited to be there myself.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there'll be 30 recertification credits. So what that means is you're not going to be able to go to every single breakout session, but they've had all the breakout speakers record digitally their presentation so you can watch them afterward. And they also have a special program there. Ben Eubanks will be doing a summit on recruiting. Ben's a fellow SHRM author and a great friend of mine. And then last but not least, shameless plug, the HR Like a Boss podcast will be there live streaming. So too will Willery. Willery, my team, will be inside the vendor hall sharing off about all of our great staffing and technology consulting services. You mentioned this breakout you're going to be doing on culture. And that word culture can mean so many different things to so many people. What will you be talking about in that breakout session? What will you expect people to take away from it?
I'll be talking about the different types of culture. I'll talk about why culture is disrupted and what the HR responsibility and role is in recognizing how they can bring culture into alignment, and we'll help them identify what type of culture they really want. It is not this nebulous thing of, oh, it's just culture. You name what you want and you name what you have, so you know where you want to go. So we'll be talking about all of those things.
All right. So Pamela, the book is called HR Like a Boss. It'll be out October 24th. Check out the SHRM store or Amazon if you want to find a way to capture the book. This podcast is called HR Like a Boss. So I get all guests out with the same exact question. How would you describe someone that does HR like a boss?
Oh my goodness. The person that comes to mind her name is Hillary Jeffries. She works as an executive at Patient Point, and she is a phenomenal leader. She's very engaging. She's an inclusive thinker, embracing individuals, strategic. She knows where her role is, and she knows how to coach up. She knows how to coach around. She's a partner in the organization, and she thinks and speaks business. She's a connector as well. It's not just about her, it's about the people that are around her. So she elevates everyone around her. Because of that, her ship rises as well. She's just a phenomenal individual.
Pamela Green, fantastic job. I look forward to seeing you at the Ohio HR Conference later this month, September 20th through the 22nd.
You got it, John. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out the HR Like a Boss podcast. If it resonates with you, please leave a rating and review, or better yet, subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.